Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine something so tiny, right? You can only see it under a microscope. Yet, it produces maybe up to half the air you're breathing right now, helps fertilize whole continents, and can even, believe it or not, crack criminal cases. Sounds a bit like science fiction, doesn't it? But it's very real. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the, well, astonishing world of diatoms. You often hear them called the microscopic jewels of the sea. Our mission here, using the sources we've got, is to really pull out the key insights about these incredible organisms. We'll look at, their biology, which is mind-boggling, their huge roles in global cycles, and some applications for humans that are genuinely surprising. You're really about to find out why these tiny powerhouses are Earth's hidden architects.
Yeah, it's truly fascinating, isn't it? How something so, well, seemingly insignificant can have such a profound and widespread impact. It shapes our planet's ecosystem, sure, but it even influences our daily lives in ways most people just never think about.
So maybe let's start at the beginning. What exactly is a diatom? We're talking about a huge group of microalgae, basically single-celled organisms, and they're found, well, pretty much everywhere. There's water, oceans, rivers, lakes, soil, even like damp spots on walls.
That's right, they're eukaryotes, so they have a proper nucleus in their cells, like ours do.
Yeah.
And they are a really dominant type of phytoplankton,
Okay.
the base of loads of aquatic food webs. But the thing that makes them really unique, truly sets them apart, is that outer shell.
Right, and this is where it gets really cool. Unlike most living things, diatoms are encased in this rigid, super intricate cell wall, and it's made entirely of silica that's hydrated silicon dioxide. You can sort of picture it like a tiny, ornate glass house.
Exactly.
And that's why people call them jewels of the sea or living opals, right? Because of that structure.
Precisely. That silica shell is called a frustule, and its structure, it's on the nanoscale. It actually interacts with light to create these amazing colors. Structural coloration, it's called. Like a butterfly's wing shimmering, Not pigment, just structure. And they come in two main shapes. You've got centric diatoms, which are sort of round, radially symmetric like a petri dish. And then pennant diatoms, which are more boat-shaped, bilaterally symmetric. Now, most just drift with the currents, but it's worth mentioning the male gametes of the centric ones, they do have flagella. Little tails for swimming.
And these little guys are busy. Their size range is incredible, from just 2 micrometers, that's smaller than a red blood cell, up to 2,000 micrometers, which is actually big enough to see without a microscope if you really look closely.
Yeah, just about.
They can be solitary, or they can form these amazing colonies, shapes like ribbons, fans, zigzags, even stars sometimes. And if conditions are right, a whole population can double in just 24 hours. Boom.
Incredible growth rate.
It's genuinely hard to overstate how important they are globally. Diatoms alone, get this, generate maybe 20 to 50% of all the oxygen produced on Earth each year.
50%. Yeah, and their impact goes further. Every year, they pull in over 6.7 billion tons of silicon from the water they live in. And their biomass, just the sheer weight of them, makes up nearly half of all the organic stuff found in the oceans.
Wow. Okay. And here's another mind-blowing bit. The shells of the dead ones, they sink and become a big part of marine sediment. But listen to this. The entire Amazon basin gets fertilized every year by 27 million tons of diatom shell dust.
Yeah, dust.
Transported by wind all the way across the Atlantic from the Sahara Desert in Africa.
Specifically from a place called the Baudelaide Depression. Used to be a massive freshwater lake system ages ago.
So what does all this unseen activity actually mean for you, listening? It means these tiny, tiny organisms aren't just hanging out, they're actively engineering the planet's health.
That really is the core insight, isn't it? When you look at how efficient they are. Building those silica shells takes only about 8% of the energy compared to making a similar organic cell wall. That's a huge saving. Combine that with their fast growth and their knack for using silicon, you realize they haven't just survived, they've evolved this almost perfect strategy to dominate these crucial global cycles. They're basically co-engineering the conditions for life.
It's just amazing how that unique structure gives them such a massive advantage, evolutionarily speaking.
And there's more. That biogenic silica, their shell material, it also acts as a pretty good pH buffer, which helps them soak up dissolved carbon dioxide more easily from the water. That, plus the energy saving, helps explain why they generally grow faster than other algae their size.
But despite all this success, it's not all plain sailing for them. A NASA study back in 2015 found something a bit concerning. Populations of diatoms, especially the larger types, actually declined by more than 1% per year between 1998 and 2012.
Yeah, and the thinking is that this is linked to the ocean's mixed layer, the top layer that gets stirred by wind becoming shallower. which unfortunately cuts down the flow of vital nutrients reaching the diatoms deeper down. And if you connect that to the bigger picture, well, fewer diatoms means potentially less carbon dioxide getting pulled from the atmosphere down into the deep ocean for long-term storage. That could seriously impact the global carbon cycle over time.
Right, a knock-on effect. And maybe closer to home for some listeners, you might have actually heard of something called brown snot or rock snot.
Yeah.
Sounds lovely, doesn't it? But that's caused by Didymasphenia geminata. It's an invasive freshwater diatom, and it can cause really severe environmental problems in rivers and streams it gets into. A reminder that even good guys can cause trouble sometimes.
Definitely.
Now, these diatoms, they aren't just lonely cells floating about, are they? They're involved in this really complex web of interactions. We're talking symbiosis, predation, even viruses attacking them. And all these relationships, they ripple outwards, affecting those big global biogeochemical cycles we mentioned.
Absolutely. And there was this fascinating insight from a big study, the Terra Oceans expedition back in 2020. It found that only about 13% of the times diatoms associate with other plankton groups. Only 13% is driven just by the environment, like temperature or nutrients, which means the vast majority, a whopping 87%, is best explained by the organisms actually interacting directly, their abundance, who's next to who.
87%. That really changes how I picture them, not just passive floaters at all. What does a dynamic social life even mean for something microscopic? Are they, like, communicating?
Well, maybe not chatting, but it points to a highly interactive ecosystem, species directly impacting each other's survival and where they can live. And what's even more surprising, maybe, is that diatoms show way more negative correlations with other organisms compared to other plankton groups. It suggests their distribution is really tightly controlled by what scientists call top-down pressure, meaning predators and parasites, basically, things eating them or infecting them. So a big part of their success comes from how they avoid being eaten. Those solid silica shells help, obviously. Forming chains or growing spines makes them harder to swallow. Some even produce toxic chemicals to put predators off.
Wow, so they're not just surviving passively, they're actively fighting back, defending themselves constantly. What kind of things are interacting with them?
Well, they're food for a lot of things. Tiny single-celled grazers called microzooplankton, things like psyllids and dinoflagellates, basically microscopic grazers, and then larger stuff like copepods, tiny crustaceans, people sometimes call them the insects of the sea. They munch on diatoms too. But it's not all conflict. They form partnerships, symbioses. Some team up with nitrogen-fixing cyanobacteria, sharing resources. Some, like one called Fragilariopsis doliolus, live as epiphytes, meaning they just grow harmlessly on the surface of other organisms, like certain ciliates. But then, yeah, they can get attacked by fungi, other protists acting as parasites. And like I said, some fight back with chemicals, engaging in a kind of biochemical warfare.
Okay, so beyond these huge ecological roles, diatoms also have some incredibly practical uses for us humans. Some are really surprising.
That's right. Those super tough shells from dead diatoms, they build up over millions of years. They form this soft, silica-rich rock called diatomaceous earth, or diatomite.
Right, diatomaceous earth. I've heard of that. It's used for loads of things, isn't it? Like fine polishing, filtering liquids. I think they use it in swimming pool filters. And maybe clarifying wine or beer.
Exactly. All those things.
And it's a mild abrasive in some toothpastes. And even in cat litter because it's super absorbent.
And here's a weird one. It's used as a stabilizer in dynamite.
No way. Dynamite. Okay, that is surprising.
Yeah. And because it's basically a natural nanomaterial, it's becoming really important for making ceramics, materials that control humidity as an additive in cement, even for carrying drugs and medicine, and as a filler in plastics and paints.
But the really cutting-edge stuff seems to be harnessing that incredibly intricate nanoscale structure of the shells themselves for new tech.
Precisely. Diatom cells just churn out these incredibly precise little valves, all sorts of shapes and sizes, reliably. So scientists are thinking, could we use that? Could we harness that natural manufacturing to make tiny structures for advanced optical systems or for semiconductor nanolithography that's basically printing microscopic circuits, or even tiny vehicles to deliver drugs right where they're needed in the body? Wow. And there are even these really cool proposals, like using diatoms to make better solar cells by getting them to build their shells out of photosensitive titanium dioxide instead of silica.
So they generate electricity.
That's the idea.
Or
even engineering biofuel-producing solar panels using them. Lots of potential there.
Okay, that's fascinating. But maybe the most unexpected job for diatoms is in forensic science, helping solve crimes.
Yeah. It's a crucial tool in certain cases.
Right, so when a body is found in water, investigators face this big question. Did the person actually drown in that water? Or did they die somewhere else and the body was just dumped there later? Getting that right is vital.
Absolutely. And diatoms are almost perfectly suited to help answer that question for two main reasons. One, they're pretty much everywhere in natural water, ubiquitous. And two, those silica shells are incredibly tough. They resist decay almost forever.
Okay, so how does finding them or not finding them in a body actually help investigators?
Well, think about what happens in a real drowning. The person gasps, inhales water. The diatoms in that water go into the lungs, pass through the lung tissue into the bloodstream, and then the heart, which is still beating, pumps that blood and the diatoms around the body. They end up in distant organs, liver, kidneys, brain, and especially deep inside the bone marrow.
Ah, okay. But if the person is already dead when they go into the water?
Right. If the body's just immersed after death, some water and diatoms might passively get into the airways, maybe the stomach. But the heart isn't pumping. There's no circulation. So those diatoms can't travel through the bloodstream to reach those internal organs like the bone marrow.
Okay, that's the critical difference then. Finding diatoms deep inside organs beyond the lungs is really strong proof the person was alive and breathing when they went into the water. Proof of drowning.
Exactly. It's very strong evidence. And it gets better. If you can identify the specific species of diatoms found in the body tissues and match them to the species living in the water where the body was found, that can even help pinpoint the exact location where the drowning occurred, which might be different from where the body was recovered.
That's incredible detail. How long has this technique been used?
Oh, it has quite a history. Diatoms themselves were formally recognized way back, maybe late 1700s, and people started exploring their use in forensics, specifically for drowning cases, back in the late 1800s. So it's been around and refined for a long time.
So how do the forensic teams actually do this work? What's the process?
It's very meticulous, as you can imagine. First, they collect water samples from the suspected drowning site. Careful collection is key. Then, during the autopsy, they take samples from specific organs: lungs, liver, kidney, brain. But particularly the femur, the thigh bone. They target the bone marrow inside the femur because it's deep within the body, well protected, so less risk of contamination after death.
Makes sense. And then what? How do they find the diatoms in those tissue samples?
They have to get rid of all the organic material, the tissue, the blood cells, leaving just the silica shells. The most common method is acid digestion, using strong acids to dissolve everything else. But there are other ways too, like using enzymes or chemicals like hydrogen peroxide, or even carefully burning the sample down to ash. The goal is always the same: isolate those tiny, telltale diatom frustules.
Okay. Sounds like it requires a lot of care and expertise. Are there challenges with it?
Oh, absolutely. Identifying the individual species under a microscope is really time-consuming. It takes a highly trained specialist, a diatomologist. And contamination is a constant worry. During sample collection at the scene, during the autopsy, even in the lab processing the samples, you have to be incredibly careful. And there's always a potential, however small, for observer bias when someone's looking down a microscope for hours.
Right. Human factors. But I guess technology must be helping here, making it faster or more reliable.
Yes, definitely. There are significant advances happening. Molecular methods are being explored, things like DNA barcoding or next-generation sequencing. These could identify species much faster and more accurately by looking at their genetic material. The main hurdle right now is that these methods are still pretty expensive for routine forensic work. And there are imaging techniques too, like atomic force microscopy, AFM. They can actually visualize the diatom shells at nanometer resolution, see the incredibly fine details of their structure.
Wow. And I think you mentioned artificial intelligence earlier. Is that playing a role here too?
Yes, and that could be the real game changer, actually. Automated systems are being developed that use AI, specifically deep learning, things called convolutional neural networks.
Okay. How do they work?
Basically, you train these AI systems on thousands and thousands of digital images of known diatom species. The AI learns to recognize the patterns, the subtle differences in shape and structure, and early results show they can identify species from microscope images with incredibly high accuracy, sometimes even better than human experts and obviously much, much faster.
That's amazing.
It is. Now, human oversight is still crucial, to verify results and handle tricky cases. But these AI tools have the potential to seriously boost the scientific rigor, the speed, and the objectivity of forensic diatom analysis. It's a very exciting development.
Wow. Just wow. From producing, half the oxygen we breathe, to filtering drinks, stabilizing dynamite, holding secrets for nanotechnology. and then helping police solve the toughest drowning cases. Diatoms really are these tiny hidden architects of our world, aren't they? It just highlights how the absolute smallest things on our planet can have the most enormous, far-reaching impacts.
It really does. It's a powerful reminder, I think, that even in the places we don't often look, like the vast oceans or the quiet rivers, there are these unseen forces constantly shaping our environment, constantly working in ways we're only just starting to fully grasp and maybe even starting to utilize.
Yeah. So maybe next time you take a really deep breath or filter some water or even just look at a pond, spare a thought for that incredible invisible world of diatoms working away. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other hidden microscopic marvels are out there just waiting for us to discover their profound influence on